used to call me Crazy Joe, but now they can call me Batman.
What up? Welcome back once again to the Necro Zoo. I am Bones. And in this one, let's go ahead and add one more figure to my McFarlane DC Multiverse collection. Now today we will take a look at our third figure from the JLA Plastic Man wave. Now this is going to be a 90s styled electrified Superman. And there was a point in time when this was a really popular version of Superman. Tons of references to him online. It's really easy to go in and find some cool images of this version of Superman. Now there is an alternate version, which is the red version. This is a platinum figure that you could find. Now I haven't found it yet, but eventually I will pick it up. But aside from being a really cruel trick from McFarlane to make that version, the platinum version, I do feel like it is a must-have to have both versions. Now, of course, once again, there is a lot of cool stuff about this figure. There also is some negative things that I will get into. But without any further ado, let's go ahead and take a look at him. Now, he does look pretty electrified in the packaging, but let's go ahead and take a closer look at him. But first, he does come with your standard black DC Multiverse stamp. Now, of course, this is not really needed, but sometimes they do come in useful. He also has his data file card. Now, once again, this image has nothing to do with these versions of Superman, the blue or the red version. And although I know McFarlane wanted to stick with that JLA theme for his wave, this this just represents that 90s mullet Superman, and it doesn't really represent anything about this sort of electrified suit version of the Kryptonian. But it is something we have come to expect from McFarlane with inconsistencies. So, not, not a big surprise. Now, on the back, you do have some information, although it is just your basic read up on Superman, Clark Kent. Doesn't talk about the reason he's in the suit or anything like that. So you'll have to look up that on your own. Now, he does come with some energy effect accessories. You have these two shorter ones that I guess go, probably on his arms. And you also have these two larger ones, which probably go on his legs. You could get a pretty cool effect slapping these on, but I've never been a big fan of this sort of energy effect. I don't know what I would prefer, but once again, we'll just add them to the fodder box and have them for future use. Now you also get the torso of Plastic Man. As you know, I'm trying to get there so we could take a look at Plastic Man. Basically, that's going to be the next video, is taking a look at this highly anticipated figure. So we'll get into that when I finally put them together. Now, let's go ahead and take a quick look at this energized version of Superman. First impressions, I think the blue is a tad bit light, although since he is like an energized character, there's a lot of energy and illumination going around him. It kind of does work, but it is a tad bit light for me. I do remember him from the 90s. I do remember seeing him in a lot of comics. So although it's not a big thing, it is there. It's kind of light. Now, I've also heard that if you put a matte wash on this figure, it like tones down the shininess and makes the figure look a lot better, which I may end up doing just out of pure curiosity to see how it looks, because I do prefer a matte finish to a high gloss finish. Although satin finish is okay, I actually prefer a flat matte finish to my figures, although sometimes it doesn't let itself to represent the actual character. But another thing I see right away, nice body shape. They did go back and use one of the better Superman proportion bodies, which was the original Page Puncher Superman. Now they did change it up a little bit to make it, its own figure, but they did, they did once again slip up and leave some very obvious mistakes. But for what he is, I'll be happy to add him to the shelf and add him to the collection. The paint lines are clean, I'll give him that. That's really nice, crisp paint. So, not too shabby. It's, okay for now. Let's take a more detailed look. Now, looking at the head sculpt, really like this head sculpt. Has all the Superman features in there, the chin, the hair. Really like the hair. He has a nice wash on it. For some reason, this time, the way they did the wash really works. And even a sort of, I want to say, a little bit of a creepy vibe to him with those whited out eyes. Really strong features, really strong sculpt that they did for this head sculpt. So really happy with that. It looks awesome. You got that sort of Kryptonian suit, headgear that goes wrapped around the head, opening up to the possibility of getting alternate versions of Superman in the future. But for what it is, I really love this head sculpt. Take a look at the articulation. Looks down really good. Looks up awesome. That's going to be great for flight poses. And this is without any kind of modding. This is how he comes out of the box. You got right to left. And of course, you could tilt his head for some character. Big glaring faux pas that they did is this neck should all be connected. You do see the plug mark where this, neck sat on the body, and it really should be a continuous shape from the neck into the head. Don't know how you could really, fix this or anything like that. It's just something that they decided to do to make it easier for them. Now, is it a deal breaker? Does it bother me that much? No, it's fine. If you're just glancing at this figure, it looks okay. But that is something that I really wish they would have not done. Now, of course, we won't get into the articulation too much because we've seen this body before, but you got that shoulder disc. Once again, they only painted it in a white or molded it in a white, and it doesn't have any blue underneath to give it that consistent look when you articulate it. And this brings us into one of the other negatives I have of this figure, and that is that they left the cuff of the suit on the wrist. This really should be just one solid piece. It should not have this sculpted detail. And seeing as how they went to the trouble of removing the boot from the calf to make it a clean, look, they should have done the same thing with the wrist. So that's another thing where they just, not sure why they did it. Maybe because the arms were already made for this body. And although I do have to say they're improving because of the way they did the lower legs, they're still, shooting themselves in the foot by not paying attention to those little close details. So it is something we have to put up with. Now you got that waist articulation, moves around. Not too much in the crunch, but that is a layover from the first release of this figure. Didn't change any design on that. You got the trunks, which look really good, look clean. The thighs, minimal thigh swivel there, but you could move it around. Nice double jointed knees. And like I said, this does look really good because they did attempt to make it look like just a suit without any sculpted details down into the boots. Now, really interested to think how this happened. They had to make a plain lower leg so that they could accomplish this look for this version of Superman. But it does look really good. Take a look at him from the bottom. No tread, which is accurate, but you do have some identifying marks. Moving up the back, nice clean design. All you have is the paint. Not too much in texture or sculpt, though they did keep a little bit of the sculpt on the side of the thigh, but it does not really bother me that much. Going into the back now, this is something I never knew. He has the S in the back. I just never noticed that detail. Now I do have the DC Universe Classics versions of this figure, and they don't have the S in the back. They actually had a plug where you could put like an energy effect in it, so you wouldn't really be able to tell if it had the S symbol in the back. But pretty surprising, McFarlane did add it. Now this is something extra because if it didn't have it, I wouldn't be too bummed out. But since it does have it, it's a, kooky little detail that they added. So pretty sweet. Now, one thing I will say for this figure, and that is he is awesome to pose. That's one big factor that I cannot ignore, and that is that really great figure to have in hand. If you could look aside from the flaws that it has, very photogenic, very articulated, very fun to pose. Just an awesome, fun little figure that, there isn't really a lot of people that know this version of Superman unless grew up in the 90s. But to collectors, he is a really popular version. Now, as I said, I do have the DC Universe Classics version of this figure. And you could see how this blue is a little bit more of the blue that I would have imagined them to use. And this is a really beautiful figure from the DCUC line. The only negative about that is that once you do start moving them around, it is a little bit horrible, and the articulation is very dark ages. This looks like crap. This doesn't look good. This looks really bad. But if you just have him as a static figure on your shelf, he looks really good and still holds up even to this day. Now, as I said, I do not have yet the platinum version. I will eventually pick it up, but I do have the red version of the DCUC Classic. Once again, awesome looking figure, just not too big on the articulation. That has kind of not aged well. Another thing that they did, that Mattel did on this one, which is pretty awesome, they actually gave him two different head sculpts. Blue one has his own face sculpt, and the red one has more of a grimace, sort of angry head sculpt, which pretty much works. Now, I know that's something that you could only dream of McFarlane delving into, but I am pretty sure that the red version has the same head sculpt as this blue version. Now, one figure I do want to bring out, and that is the Earth 2 Superman. Now, this one does have a first appearance Superman head on him. This is the way I keep him, just to give him a more classic look. But this is for scaling purposes. Now, he is taller than this version of Superman. But the reason I bring him out is I really wish they would have used this as the base for this energized Superman. Now, the boots, of course, would have been the same thing. They would have had to find a way to clean up the lower leg. But if you look at the sleeves on this Superman, he doesn't have any added detailed sculpt work. I even popped off the arm and switched out the hands and the wrist joint just so you could kind of get an idea of what it should have looked like. Just a clean design without any lines in it. But hindsight is 2020. This is the figure that we got. So, I am happy with it. I just wish they would take a closer look at a lot of these little details. And not to take anything away from this energized Superman figure, as I stated before, really fun figure. You can even switch out some different effects. I added this energy effect that's from Black Lightning, and it really works with this Superman figure, giving him that like crackling energy look. So there's tons of other energy effects that we have gotten from McFarlane that you could play around with to get some cool figure photography with the Superman. So anyways, guys, that's basically it. Pretty nice figure, not perfect. He'll be awesome to add to my DC Multiverse shelf. And up next, we will take a look at that Plastic Man figure. But you guys keep hunting out there, keep collecting, keep customizing, and I will see you on the next one.
They used to call me Crazy Joe, but now they can call me Fat Man.